When it comes to which team has improved the most this offseason, there is no doubt that the Chicago Bears are at the top of the list, and for a very good reason. They entered in the season with a 7-10 record, and they ended up adding a new quarterback in multiple skill positions to ultimately change their fortune. And if you've been following the sports media, there have been 4 major reasons why the Chicago Bears have been a popular pick, not only to make the playoffs, contend for the division, but even win a couple of playoff games. And that's because on the first note, they upgraded their offensive personnel, the new quarterback, they have a division with bad defenses to help Caleb Williams develop, and they also have a favorable schedule to start the year where there should be growing pains. All of these points seem pretty good on the surface, but they're not quite what they seem. There's also 2 underlying issues underpinning this offseason and the way this next season is going to be handled that could absolutely derail the Chicago Bears season. There is one major offseason move that the Bears should have done. They should have done, but they didn't, and it's going to come back to bite them. So that's what I'm going to talk about today, why the Chicago Bears' fortune isn't quite as rosy as people say, and how maybe, just maybe, they may end this season just like every other one in recent memory. High hopes and a lot of disappointment and broken hearts. Make sure you guys like the video and subscribe if you're new, and stick to the end, because the final points are earth-shattering and could really, really wreck the Bears. Let's get into the first point first and foremost. This is by far the strongest point as the reason to hope, the upgraded offensive personnel. Rome Odunze is a rookie, so he may have his ups and downs, but Keenan Allen in particular has had some good production. He's a good wide receiver from LA, but keep in mind too that the man is 32 years old. 32-year-old wide receivers. There's a reason why LA was kind of willing to move on. I just want to throw that out to keep in mind, because he's a 30-year-old man. So the other big addition is DeAndre Swift, but he's had an injury problem. It's the reason why Detroit was so quick to trade him. Detroit traded him to Philadelphia because DeAndre Swift could not have a season where he just stayed healthy. And he did that in Philadelphia, but a lot of that was because every time they got in third and 3, 4th and 2, any of that short yardage stuff, they just spammed the tush push. They didn't really need DeAndre Swift at that point. Is DeAndre Swift and Keenan Allen great additions to the Bears? Absolutely. Absolutely they are. But how much that they're truly like game wreckers is going to depend on how their age and injury history is going to line up, which is not exactly an ideal situation for the Bears. But I know what you're saying. Okay, hey, we at least have an upgrade at the quarterback position. The popular narrative out there is that because the Bears drafted this number 1 overall pick, they are automatically going to get better quarterback play, which means they are guaranteed to have more wins the season before. Is this actually true? In general, yeah. When you look back at the teams that drafted number 1 overall, there was a improvement in nearly every single case for the quarterback's rookie year. You know, like for Sam Bradford, eight or 9 win improvements for him and Andrew Luck are impressive. But like even the smaller 2.5 wins for like Kyler Murray or Burrow, or 2 wins for Trevor Lawrence. If you take these, average together, it's about 3 wins. You add that to the 7-10 record, bada bing, bada boom, Bears are 10-7 and a playoff team. Get a couple more bounces their way, and you're looking at a division crown potentially. But let's take a look back at that list one more time. Just look at all these records on the left. 1-15, 2-14, 0-16, 3-13. In most of these cases, the records were so low, there was nowhere else to go. It's the principle of the dead cat bounce. If there's nowhere else to fall, there's going to be some improvement. Now, is that necessarily because the quarterback is great? Not necessarily, especially, for example, in Sam Bradford's case. There's a reason why they drafted the Rams later, or Jameis Winston, who's a journeyman in the league right now. And furthermore, the teams that actually did have room to fall and traded up for their quarterback in Jared Goff and Bryce Young followed those up with a win reduction. And both of those were 7-win teams, just like the Bears. Now, is that to say that the Bears are going to be like some 3-win tank team? Absolutely not. That is an incredibly unrealistic expectation. The Bears have way too much talent on this roster to fall anywhere near that low. I only bring this up because there is room to fall for the Bears. Just because you added this rookie quarterback does not mean you're going to go from 7 to 10. It's a whole new year and a whole new quarterback, and you got to treat it as such. So I feel like that is an unrealistic expectation for Caleb Williams. But let's get into the third point. This division being bad defensively. And yeah, this was true. The Lions have had multiple issues with the Aaron Glenn unit. Joe Barry and the Green Bay Packers have had their defensive inconsistencies, and the Vikings, well, they're a weird franchise. But that is changing. The Lions added more corners. Their rookies are going to be developing the second-year guys. The Packers finally fired Joe Barry. And the Vikings get another year of Brian Flores in the system. The NFC North is going to be the toughest division in the conference for the next 5 years. The Lions are not going anywhere. The Packers are not going anywhere. And the Vikings and the Bears, you both reloaded with new quarterbacks, and you already had good skill position guys on top of that. I do not think that this is the best division. If you're going to pick spots to just win and develop, this is not the division you'd pick. You'd pick the NFC South, where everyone is meh or bleh, and Caleb Williams would be guaranteed to go 4-2 in the division. But that's not necessarily the case here. It's going to be a tough road to hoe. But this final point is a real bugaboo of mine, and that is the myth of the favorable schedule. The thought process is that, oh, hey, look at this schedule. We get all these easier teams to start the season. We get Tennessee, we get Indianapolis, we get Carolina, and Jacksonville, and Washington, and New England to start the year. Caleb Williams will be able to develop, and then we'll be able to hit the back half of the schedule running. But think about it this way, gang. Yeah, this start of the schedule looks great, but do you know what I see a lot to start the season? AFC teams. You know what that means? All of your games within the division and within the conference are all scrunched together. This schedule is to end the year is absolutely brutal. Green Bay, Minnesota, and between Minnesota and Detroit, you get a short week. Yeah, you get an extended bye going to San Francisco, but you still have to go to San Francisco. This schedule is absolutely nightmarish to end the year. So if the Bears are going to do well, they're going to need to win early. They need to stack up wins where they can so they can kind of buoy this back half of the schedule. Now, how likely is that? Well, I mean, it depends. If the Bears can go like 6-2 or 7-1 to start the season, they'll be fine. But if they don't, they're going to end up like the 2022 Denver Broncos. The Broncos had the benefit of the quote-unquote easier schedule to start the year because the schedule makers wanted Russell Wilson to work. They played Seattle, Houston. They were looking at a 2-1 start and potentially a 4-1 start to get rolling, and they backloaded some of those key divisional matchups, specifically with Kansas City, in order to give Russell Wilson and Nathaniel Hackett time to gel. But because the Broncos were not able to stack up wins early, their season crumbled to dust. Likewise, teams that didn't get the benefit of the schedule makers, like the Houston Texans, ended up finding a way to do just fine. If you look at the first 4 games for the Texans schedule, the AFC North twice, and 2 divisional opponents, that screams 1-3, 0-4 start to the season, especially with a rookie quarterback. But that didn't happen. That's the weird thing about the schedule. When you watch your team and you watch the acquisitions, it's pretty easy to say, oh, hey, we can definitely beat this team and that team and that team, but you're not the only one that's improving. This whole league is a mismatch of teams rising and falling, and it can get really, really hard to know which team is truly good or bad until the season's basically already decided. So let's take a look at this early part of the schedule one more time, because this early part is not everything is cracked up to be either. First and foremost, yeah, the Tennessee Titans, that should be a win. But there's also another chance of Will Levis having more time under his belt and coming out with a new coach. The Texans are going to be tough. They're a playoff team. LA was a playoff team. The Colts get another year of Shane Steichen, and early in the season, Anthony Richardson, a dynamic playmaker, should be healthy and ready to go. Carolina's a win, but Jacksonville, they just paid their quarterback $275 million. And you're probably circling that Washington game. The overall record of number 2 overall picks versus their number 1 counterparts actually cuts in the number 2 overall quarterback's edge. Arizona will have Marvin Harrison develop, and by the time you play New England, there's a chance that Drake May has enough NFL snaps under his belt to make it a game. I am not saying that it's impossible for the Bears to go 6-2 in this start of the season, but it's very likely that the best case for the Bears is that they go 500 down the stretch in those back half of games, and that is just that's a really hard thing to do. I mean, there is a reason why the Vikings literally had all their quarterbacks go down, and they were still scratching and clawing for a large chunk of the year to the playoffs, even with the Pastronaut and this quarterback band of misfits. I just don't see a world where those divisional games are not tough. I don't see a world where that really half of the schedule is like 7-2 worthy to start the year. But let's ignore all that, because even if you agree with me on all these 4 points, you're like, that would be a pretty weak way to make this video. Why on earth would I spend all this time if just those 4 things are true? Because you could argue that there are issues with every free agency move, or every quarterback, or every division. Like, you can argue some of that stuff in the schedule. But there are 2 main reasons that I'm not quite a believer, and that's the hard knock horrors, the primetime fizzle, and a coaching catastrophe looming on the horizon, aka Matt Eberflus. It's no secret that the Chicago Bears offseason, between ending their loss in Green Bay to the draft, it was a circus. That on the front of this problem of the hard knocks and the prime time, the lights are going to be on a divided locker room, a divided fan base, or at least it was. And there's a chance that by throwing all the cameras in and focusing on this team, there's going to be a lot of unnatural dynamics at play. I totally get why the Chicago Bears are a hard knock team. I do. They're going to be a really interesting watch. But there's one thing that we've always agreed on in the sports world, and that is when you are a part of the media circus, your season does not usually go the greatest. That's why everybody's critical of the Dallas Cowboys, for example, or the Los Angeles Lakers. They're always in the news cycle, but never actually relevant. They're in the business of being in the spotlight, not being a football team, and often those 2 goals are not the same. This Hard Knock show is going to get ratings. But for a rookie quarterback trying to come into the NFL where there's a ton of expectations on the Chicago Bears team, having all the cameras there, it may not affect Caleb Williams, but it may affect a lot of those other guys on the roster. This whole dynamic is going to be weird. Add to it the fact that every single Chicago Bears preseason game will be nationally televised, and you are creating the perfect pressure cooker to boil this team to the ground. But again, if it was just the bright lights, that would be another thing. Because Hard Knocks can actually build a lot of goodwill too. Well, Aaron Rodgers got a ton of goodwill after the New York Jets Hard Knocks. The Lions got a lot of goodwill out of their Hard Knocks, such that they were able to survive their 1-6 stint and have some loyal fans stand by them, even when the Detroit Free Press and a lot of those Detroit sports reporters were trying to get him out of town. But the real reason I'm so skeptical and why I truly doubt the Bears this year is because of the second point on the list, Matt Eberflus. When the Flus was hired from Indianapolis, it was a little bit of a strange hire. I mean, the Colts defense when he was there was fine, but it wasn't anything too crazy to ride home about. And the Matt Eberflus this season was a bonkers banana circus that did not get any national attention. And I don't know why, because if you actually sat down and you watched the whole thing play out, there were actually some really good reasons why Caleb Williams may not exactly want to come to this thing. First and foremost, on a very funny note, you remember how Robert Saleh, where there was a lot of talk about, he's growing a beard, or he's getting a tan, he's got to change his look for the fans, he's trying to stay in good light for his boss. Well, Matt Eberflus actually had his own little arc of the tanning and the growing the beard, which is funny. But the main reason why the Chicago Bears season was so messed up out of the gate was because after all this hype of adding DJ Moore and getting another year of Justin Fields, the Bears started with an 0-4 start. 38 points to the Packers, 27 to Tampa Bay, 41 to Kansas City, 31 to Denver, and that cooked Russell Wilson offense. Holy Toledo, Batman, what the heck happened? That's 137 points against the Bears. You can't win any game when that's you got to overcome bonkers scores like that. And you're probably wondering, what on earth was that defensive coordinator thinking? What could he possibly be doing that would be so was he just not watching game film? Did he just not have buy-in from the players? Well, my friends, my dear viewers, one of the most important aspects of being a head coach is being able to hire the right people and having people of good character and of sound football mind. You gotta be able to have the X's and O's and also help facilitate a positive winning culture. Well, after about the third week or so, there were a lot of rumors about someone's house getting raided by the FBI. There's some reports of House Hall. A lot of it turned out to be smoke and mirrors. But there was one thing that was undeniable at the end of the day, and that was that the former Bears defensive coordinator had to resign because of inappropriate behavior. The rumors of what actually happened vary. The common narrative is that there was something egregious enough that HR had to get involved. There are even some rumors at one point that it sent Matt Eberflus to tears. Again, that is not a good way to start the season. Those are some bad vibes. And no wonder the defense stunk to start the year. It wasn't just the addition of Montez Sweat. It was because your defensive coordinator was doing some really bad things instead of focusing on his job. But this isn't the only moment of some questionable decisions in the coaching world. When Matt Eberflus took over the defense to play against the Chicago Bears, they once again got cooked. But this was a particularly bizarre game because when you watched it, Justin Fields was not the problem. He was cooking. He was moving. He even set records for 16 straight completions. Furthermore, he did not throw an incomplete pass in the first half until a Hail Mary at the end. So you're probably wondering, man, oh man, oh man. So you're telling me they had this gigantic 3-score lead at one point, and they choked it away? What on earth could have possibly happened? Well, allow me to set the stage for you. After the Broncos started getting some momentum marching down the field, there was a fumble by Justin Fields. Broncos take it back, and they score. The game is tied 28-28. Matt Eberflus is faced with a 4th and 1 at the Denver 18. The Bears were marching down the field. The Broncos even had to burn a couple of timeouts. So you are Matt Eberflus, and this is your situation. What do? Do you A, kick the field goal, take the lead, and let your defense play with a little bit of a lead? Do you B, put the ball in Justin Fields' hands, who was absolutely cooking all game? Or C, do you run the ball up the middle with a running back? My friends, Matt Eberflus chose option C, and that is exactly what cost them the game. And if you think this is the only lead that they managed to choke because of poor coaching decisions, oh boy, you haven't even scratched the surface. When the Detroit Lions and the Chicago Bears play, there's one thing that was always evident, is that Justin Fields is a matchup problem for the Lions. Every time they play, Justin Fields manages to find his way into a little bit of a shootout with that team. So the first go around, the Bears get this giant 12-point lead, Clock's winding down. And you think the game is over. I hop in my car. I drive over to play some basketball. And between the few minutes I was away, the Bears managed to choke a 12-point lead. I mean, look at this. Look at this drop-off. I mean, that's a straight-up collapse. If any other team did this, we'd be looking straight at the coaches. But this was another argument of, ooh, it was Justin Fields' fault. But when you watch the drive, it was because Luke Getsy, offensive mastermind that everybody was praising because, oh my God, we got to give someone credit not named Aaron Rodgers for the success in Green Bay. Because of that, Luke Getsy has had either a very, how do I put this? You know how in Madden you like to spam your favorite play sometimes? Yeah, Luke Getsy is basically that. That's why Fields ended up throwing a pick six on a screen in the Tampa Bay game, because that same play was ran multiple times in a row. Same formation and everything. In the Minnesota game, they literally ran the same 3 screen passes the entire time. And you were probably wondering too, oh, maybe that was just part of the game plan. Well, it was bad enough that Getsy got fired, the quarterback's coach got fired, the tight ends coach got fired, and the running backs coach got fired. There was a great purge in Chicago in terms of the offensive personnel. Which is why the fact that everyone was blaming Justin Fields for this failure was so bananas to me. Because the situation with Eberflus has been downright crazy. Yeah, the man can come up with some, albeit mixed, sometimes interesting, sometimes not so, nicknames. But the man hasn't been able to put a staff together. And the addition of Shane Waldron, yeah, it should be good, but wasn't he criticized for an inconsistent offense in Seattle too? This coaching staff has been a circus, and that falls directly on Matt Eberflus' shoulders. His in-game decision-making has been horrendous. And that's a huge reason why they're in this mess to begin with. I do not think that Matt Eberflus is the coach to get the Bears over the top. I hope I'm wrong, and that they don't need to clean house again and continue the cycle of coaching and quarterback misery. But I have a funny feeling that's where they are. And if your coaching is this way, you stand a great chance of taking what could be a promising year, from going from 7-10 to maybe ending up back where you started, firing another coach, and on this carousel goes, while you, the fan, pray for the madness to end. I hope I'm wrong, but this may be the end of Matt Eberflus as a Chicago Bear coach, and it may come a year too late. Make sure you guys like the video and subscribe if you're new. Thanks for watching.